Welcome again to Andrew White. Andrew, it's been some time, but we keep saying that with you. You disappear, then you come back. But hopefully, technology will come to our rescue now and we can keep our eyes on you. I tell you what, something exciting. Your new book. But before you get onto your new book, how many books have you actually written?
33.
My goodness me. Are they all current? In other words, can we buy them still?
I don't think you can buy all of them. They've been with lots of different publishers like Kingdom World, and then the present publisher, who's called Veritas, and then various other ones. But you can find them on Google if you look up eBay and see books by Andrew White. It will tell you which ones are still available.
Right. Is that the same with Amazon?
Yes.
So I'll put your name in Amazon or Google or eBay, and then they'll come up and you can buy from them.
Yes.
Okay. Have
And
you got
this book, I think, is going to be one of my best books. I said that about the last one, and I think it was, but this one is about glory. And I'm talking about the people who have inspired me. The people who've really inspired me in the glory. And it's quite interesting because I'm not just talking about people I know now. So, for example, in this one, you're in it because you're one of the people who inspires me now.
my goodness me, there's a compliment.
Yeah. But, the people who are the big inspirers have all gone before us. So I start with C.H. Spurgeon. How
Well,
inspired I've been by Spurgeon. And then go on to look at Martin Lloyd-Jones. And then Derek Prince.
my goodness me, when you can cross me out, then I can't compete with that lot.
So they're really incredible people. But I've wanted to list people who I'm working with now and people who've inspired me from the past. And it's very interesting. One of the other names on that list is C.S. Lewis. And it's interesting because he has written a book on glory, and he calls it The Weight of Glory. And the word for glory in Hebrew is kavod, and kavod means the weight. So it's something that is heavy. So glory is like the heavy yoke around our shoulders, which draws us nearer to God.
Does it mean responsibility?
Well, some people say it does, but in Hebrew, it actually simply means coming close to God in his transcendent state, and it means the heaviness of his direction. So it's a very good word. If you ask people what the word for glory is in the Bible, they will say Shekinah. And I have to tell you that there's not such a word as that. For a start, the word is Shekinah, not Shekinah. And the word Shekinah doesn't appear in the Old Testament or the New Testament. It's in the intertestamental literature. It's in the Midrash and the Talmudic literature. And there it means very much like the heaviness of the kavod and the wonderful radiating love of the kavod. And so glory is very much seen as that which brings us into the presence. And one of the other people who I've just written about is J. And I said to J. what do you understand by glory? He said, for me, glory is presence, the presence of God. And as I've done more research, I found how other people very much see it also as the presence of God.
I'm thinking of the desert experience of the children of Israel. They were led by a cloud in the daytime and the bright light at nighttime.
The fire at night and the cloud in the day. Now, when I asked you to write about your understanding of glory, you wrote a whole list of very interesting things, didn't you?
Well, there you go. That's for others to decide on that. One of the things that always will be with me is my first experience of the John Summers, as it was in those days, in North Wales, where they made steel. And I got a real shock. I had no idea how noisy, hot, and truly frightening experience that would be. And you wonder how the men could turn up to work. You think of men down coal mines and think that's a tough way of working. But my goodness me, you going a steelworks and you've got to take so much safety stuff with you. If you dare catch a glimpse when they open the furnace doors of the light and the intensity of that, you're blinded.
And it's interesting how many of the great saints have been involved in the still industry. Some of the old British people like Smith Wigglesworth.
Now, that was in South Wales.
Right. Well, that was in Bradford.
Oh, well, listen, you've still got the Welsh connection with Smith Wigglesworth because you regularly go there in Wales.
I do. I go to the Bible College in Wales, which was the place where the Welsh revival started, with a place of Rhys Howells and Hal Lindsey. Great place of prayer, and it really is a phenomenal place. I would say the Bible College in Wales is as dramatic for me as Bethel in Reading, the College of the Supernatural under Bill Johnson. But Wales has got it even before that.
There's a lot of spirituality in Wales, and there's a lot of the other side in Wales. It seems to be in conflict. We experienced this actually on the Isle of Wight.
There is, because there are all sorts of wicked things as well, witches,
Yeah,
occult and demonic.
yeah.
But wherever you see one, you see the other.
Now, isn't that strange? Now, I mentioned the Isle of Wight there. There are more Christians to the square foot in the Isle of Wight than anywhere else in the United Kingdom. But also, there's more covens and witchcraft equally.
And isn't it interesting when you look at people like Reinhard Bonnke and all his huge missions in Africa? But wherever you have a great experience of God, you see a great experience of evil, because one tries to fight out the other. but God always wins.
Indeed, we were responsible when we lived on the island for recording a lot of bands because, of course, you've got, after Glastonbury, the Isle of Wight is the place to go and see the pop groups.
I know,
But
it still is to this day.
yeah, and a lot of the folk people used to come over to the Isle of Wight. Now, let's call them esoterics. They get into all sorts of things. Now, this is not a downer on folk music. Some of it's very good. But there is a large part of it that is not very good, and all sorts of things go on there. And at one stage, we tried to film a group and we were told, forget it. I said, what do you mean, forget it? Well, you're called, our production company, Heaven Sent Productions. The folk people won't like that. I said, oh, really? And from that day onwards, we found it very difficult to film in various locations. Can I say one of them was a very large church on the Isle of Wight? And there is a real battle going on in the heavenlies.
And there's a battle in churches. And it is the errors of the supernatural that we see the most opposition.
Now, for those people that are not Christians, Andrew, that perhaps don't experience this, both of us, I know, can feel a good presence and a bad presence. And it's called discernment in the Bible. Sometimes you get that feeling when, oh, things are not very right here. I'm sure you've come across that.
So much of the time. All the time.
And it's a challenge, isn't it? It's not something that you want, but it is there.
The word that you mention of discernment really sums it all up, because we do have to discern between what is of God and what is of the devil. And the reality is, as I just said, wherever you have one, you have the other. They draw each other to each other as an opposition draws from an opposition. It's like a positive and negative magnetic attraction.
And if you feel in a situation, maybe you walk in a house, maybe you walk in a church and you get a bad feeling, what do you do about it?
What I do is I pray, Lord, you know I sense something here which is not good. Will you manifest your great glory and your great might and your majesty? We need you now, and we will see him now. So I've experienced such great glory in my life, but I've also experienced such great opposition and demonic activity, and that was particularly the case when I was ministering in Iraq, when I would have angels and demons appearing before me in the same day.
Can you recount a specific event?
Oh, well, I used to, I think I mentioned before, the most incredible supernatural experience of my life was in a place called El Kifl, which is by Babylon. And this was the place of Ezekiel, where Ezekiel's tomb was, in an old Oriental Iraqi Sephardi synagogue. And I can remember going there and seeing, literally, I saw spinning wheels in the sky. And getting there, it was as if we were against such opposition that we were held up by bandits. and we had several people who tried to attack us. And the times when I've seen the greatest glory have been the times when I've been held up by gunmen, by pirates, by baddies, by the terrorists.
Yeah, there are things going on there that need discernment and need deliverance, maybe. But there we are.
Maybe, definitely.
Now, we've got to give a warning at this stage, I feel, that frankly, you've got to know what you're doing when you're fighting these spiritual battles.
Oh, absolutely. And I say that one of the key things in my life is learning how to fight these battles. It's really difficult and you must keep at it. And
Sword of the Spirit and things like that help, Andrew?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to be completely filled with the power and the blessing of the Holy Spirit.
Now, is that called upon in a situation, or is this a daily calling on for the filling?
I personally see it as a daily calling, but there are specific times when you know you're in so much of a battle that you really have to call upon the presence of the Lord in all his power and might and majesty.
There is a scripture that says perfect love casts out all fear.
And
Now,
it certainly does.
And that's useful in a situation like you get in.
And it's quite interesting. I've mentioned that perfect love casts out all fear very often. And people say to me, well, what was the perfect love you experienced, particularly in Iraq? And I say the perfect love which I experienced always came through the children. And I think there's something very significant in our life and ministry, which is child orientated. I never underestimate the significance of little children.
They've not had the chance to become tainted, or is it there's no guile there?
And there's simplicity. And I think their simplicity causes them to be closer to God.
Our children, Andrew, are so important, more important than anybody could ever imagine. And it really pains me and many others when they're being got at by our society and things are happening in schools which should be nowhere near the school gates.
Terrible things are happening in schools at this very moment. It's very worrying, though, even what so many of the state schools are now doing, trying to bring into play all this lesbian, gay, and LGBTQ things, which we don't think is of God at all. And it is not to be at the fore in the life of our children.
The pushback against this has started. It started in America. They were first in to this. It's not as strong as it should be in UK and other countries, but people are seeing the truth of this. And even parents that are not Christians are seeing the way children are being affected. And you can see Satan's handiwork in this. Get the kids. The kids grow up tainted for life, some of them, when they see something horrible, it does not leave them, it stays with them.
And then they grow up into that kind of life.
Do you think the church is aware of this, or just lets it happen?
I think the church is aware. In some places, the church is fighting it, and in other places, the church is encouraging it. You know, the church isn't much better than the secular schools.
Well, there are lots of Anglican schools where this is allowed, and that's so very sad where we are.
What are children like in your churches in Spain?
Well, the Catholic religion is very strong form of Christianity here. There's a lot of secularism. The government is extremely left-wing and would let things happen. In one sense, it's not much different than Spain. There are oases, like in Britain, of goodness and right thinking. And it is across the board. There are lots of good Catholics and good Protestants, but the enemy is really active in Europe. You look across the pond to America and you see the devil active there in many ways, but at least they've got a basis of Christianity.
A lot of the glory and a lot of the positive things, because there the church is so much stronger than in Europe. I personally prefer being in America to in Europe.
Yeah. Throughout the Bible, there are many, many passages saying that if you are blessed, it's because of God and you obeying God. And if you disobey God and go away from his rules, if you wish, the handbook, the Bible, then you're in trouble. My goodness me. Let's realize that in Europe and other places.
Exactly.
Andrew, we hope we've cheated somebody up and give them an insight into the battle that is really going on at the moment.
I would say we're in the worst battle and in the most exciting spiritual age as well. But once again, it's when you've got one, you've got the other as well.
Yep, the battle's with us. Andrew, it's been the usual joy chatting with you, and we'll get the technology going. There's two of us now on one screen. Things are getting better, but this is an example of the attacks we're facing. It has been horrendous. It goes from one crisis to another, but at least we're persevering. And quite frankly,
we keep doing that. We will keep seeing the glory. Blessings, my dear Rodney.